For those watching Formula 1 up to the past 10 years will be getting very familiar with the term dominance. The regulations in 2014 around hybrid engines resulted in Mercedes dominating almost 7 years of Formula 1 with a couple years of some competition. And now the 2022 regulations focused on aerodynamics seems to have continued this dominance, but instead for Red Bull Racing. As of 2023, we are witnessing one of the most dominant displays by a team in the history of the sport, with a combination of driver, designer and team that simply cannot be matched. So this naturally begs the question, could 2023 become the most dominant season in Formula 1 history? Since the year 2000, Formula 1 has witnessed several periods of dominance that have left little room for competition. From 2000 to 2004, Michael Schumacher and Ferrari created an era of unprecedented success, winning 5 consecutive Drivers' Championships. This was followed by Red Bull Racing's 4-year dominance from 2010 to 2013, with Sebastian Vettel at the helm, and more recently, Lewis Hamilton's partnership with Mercedes from 2014 to 2020, which saw the team secure 7 consecutive Constructors' Championships. Out of the 24 seasons since 2000, only 6 have not been characterised by a clear period of dominance. This trend has become the status quo in Formula 1, leading many fans and observers to yearn for the excitement and unpredictability of the past. Now, while the dominance of recent years is often discussed, it is worth noting that some of the sport's most dominant seasons occurred before the turn of the millennium. In 1988, McLaren, led by Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost, showcased unparalleled superiority, winning 15 out of 16 races that season. Also, the 1992 season witnessed Williams and Nigel Mansell's remarkable partnership as they clinched the title with an impressive 9 victories. Going even further back, the 1952 season saw Ferrari's Alberto Ascari secure the Drivers' Championship with 6 wins out of 8 races held that year. However, in the current day in 2023, we are facing one of the most dominant seasons I've seen in my lifetime. Due to the switch to new regulations focused around aerodynamics, Red Bull and most importantly Adrian Newey have been leaps and bounds ahead of the pack. While the other teams are slipping over each other with new regulations, Red Bull keep going from strength to strength, becoming even more competitive. For the majority of the 2022 season, Red Bull had a dominant car over the other teams and strolled to the championship title. And for 2023, they took another step forward with the RB19, which acted more as an evolution than revolution. And this philosophy has clearly paid off. So far in 2023, we've had 8 races and Red Bull have won all of them, with Verstappen winning 6 and Perez 2. Out of these 8 wins, half of them have been 1-2 finishes, and they've claimed 7 out of 8 pole positions. Now, while they could be having greater dominance in qualifying, the races are where it matters, and when it comes to Sunday, the Red Bull car becomes a different beast. By the falling of the checkered flag, the gap from the Red Bull to the next driver has been huge, 20.515 seconds on average to be exact. In reality, there hasn't been a single race where another team seems like a challenger for the win. The only chance was in Monaco, but that would have been decided by qualifying, which didn't turn out to plan. So before we analyse whether Red Bull's 2023 campaign could become the most dominant of all time, let's actually dive into what makes up a dominant season in Formula 1. In my eyes, there are 7 main components. Win percentage, which is the amount of races you win divided by total races. Podium percentage, which is the amount of races you score a podium divided by total races. Pole position percentage, which is the amount of weekends you get a pole position divided by the total race weekends. Average race time gap, which is essentially the average margin of victory in seconds. Average quali time gap, which is the average time margin from your car to the next best team's car. Percentage of points available gained, which is how many points you gain in a season divided by the total possible amount of points to get in a whole season. And finally, points gap percentage, which is the distance from you to the next best team shown by a percentage of points difference. However, there are some small caveats to be aware of regarding these metrics. In regards to win, podium and pole position percentages, there are more races per season in the current era, so there is a higher chance for things to go wrong and lose a race or pole position. However, for older seasons, the cars were generally less reliable, resulting in a greater likelihood of retiring due to technical failures, affecting the win percentage. As well as this, in older seasons there was a greater general disparity between the teams, making any gains appear more significant. But in reality, to be considered the most dominant F1 season of all time, the most crucial statistic is win percentage. While other stats can demonstrate dominance effectively, if the win percentage does not surpass the best of all time, it will not be perceived as the most dominant. So, who holds the highest win percentage? Currently, the record belongs to the McLaren team of 1988, who won 15 out of 16 races, giving them a win percentage of 93.8%. And scarily, the only reason they didn't win every single race was because Ayrton Senna, one of the McLaren drivers, was taken out by a backmarker under blue flags while leading the Italian Grand Prix. And remarkably, he was just 2 laps away from victory. And so, for Red Bull to even break into the top 5 most dominant seasons ever, they need to win 20 out of 23 races this year. While winning 21 out of 23 races would make them the second most dominant team ever. However, they don't necessarily have to win every race to become the most dominant. Winning 22 out of 23 races would give them a percentage of 95.6%, surpassing McLaren's 93.8%. So to become the most dominant team ever, Red Bull would need to win either 22 out of 23 races or achieve a perfect record. However, the real question is whether they can actually accomplish this feat. For this, several factors come into play. Firstly, the reliability of the Red Bull car is a crucial aspect. This year, overall reliability has significantly improved for all teams compared to recent times, with arguably the best reliability in the history of Formula 1. Red Bull have experienced some issues with their clutch earlier in the season, but it appears that these problems have subsided. Secondly, the performance of Red Bull will determine their dominance too. So while they are currently displaying utter dominance, the cost cap punishments they faced may gradually reduce their advantage as the season progresses, and it is likely they loaded the majority of developments and upgrades early in the season to rack up enough points quickly to win the title. However, there is still a strong possibility that they maintain their current gap over the other teams. The weather conditions also play a significant role in race outcomes. Wet conditions can make it difficult to predict race results, as shown by Mercedes' dominant season being disrupted by mistakes during the 2019 German Grand Prix. But with that being said, Max Verstappen excels in the rain, and even won that race in Germany 4 years ago. Crashes or errors can also impact Red Bull's chances. Like with weather conditions, it is impossible to predict whether they will slip up due to driver errors resulting in crashes or car damage, or if the team makes incorrect strategic decisions. Examples from Mercedes, a seemingly invincible team, show that they can occasionally get it completely wrong, as seen in the Sakir Grand Prix in 2020. But most importantly, the performance of Red Bull's competitors is a significant factor. It is highly likely that their closest rivals will work to close the gap and put themselves in a position to capitalize on mistakes or leverage specific track conditions and layouts to their advantage. We saw this with Mercedes' performance at Brazil last season, where a combination of car development and track conditions allowed them to secure an easy victory. Basically, it is perfectly likely that teams like Mercedes, Ferrari or Aston Martin will develop their cars throughout the season, putting themselves in a good position to challenge Red Bull and potentially snatch a race win away from them. So will Red Bull actually do it? Will they actually win 22 or 23 races this season? Well, based on performance, by all means they easily could. But based on chance and odds that something outside the realm of the expected will affect them, be it weather, crashes, strategy, unreliability, I don't think they will do it. Let's not forget, the 2016 Mercedes car was simply more dominant than the current Red Bull based on those more specific metrics I mentioned. And they failed to win all races, because the teammates crashed into each other in Spain, and in Malaysia, Hamilton's engine failed while leading the race, and Rosberg recovered to third after spinning on lap 1. All in all, no matter how good your car is, you never know what is going to happen.